Hello, folks. This is Thomas Moleskin. I'm talking about AIDS virus again. What I'm talking about this time is a worldwide estimate based on the Washington University study of 2006 and a few other estimates based on CDC and World Health Organization and avert.org estimates. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you this time is the effectiveness and explain the effectiveness of my AIDS exposure test. Now, why is it so effective? You might want to wonder why. It's effective for a couple of reasons. One, it determines the number of people that are not infected. As a worldwide rule of thumb, that's less than 10% of the population. So my test can rule out 90% right off the top. Okay? Of those that do have the AIDS virus, 80 to 90% have growing sores, according to the University of Washington study of 2006. So noting all that, it's easy to come up with an AIDS exposure test. It's easy to determine whether it'll detect it or not. If you take the two figures together, depending on what country you're in and exact numbers, it is anywhere from 98% to 99% effective, with nothing but an examination of your groin or examination of your partner's groin. Now, let's go back to an older test that I made a couple of years ago. This test was called the Pre-Play 10S check roll. What it told you was, I made this just before the South Korean Olympics in January. What it told you was, if you did not have HSV, which causes the growing sores, or any other reason that causes growing sores, then your chances of either catching or having hive were very low. Now, if you had these growing sores, your chances of having AIDS are higher. Your chances of catching AIDS go through the roof. You say, well, how do I prove that one? How do I prove it goes through the roof? Well, let me put it to you this way. In Swaziland, a country in South Africa with the highest percentage of the adult population affected by AIDS in the world, their figures for AIDS started declining around about 2010. By 2015, it had dropped 40-something percent. I think it's 42 or 43% as far as new infections go. Now, what am I trying to say there? I'm saying it dropped for some reason. Now, let me point out what the reason was. The 2003 World Health Organization HSV study done globally, indicated in Africa that there was a 66.7% of the general population in Africa had growing sores or HSV. Now, what it didn't also tells you is that 55% of the men had these growing sores, and 70% of the women had the growing sores. Okay, by the 2012 study, same study done in 2012, it's the same model of study by the same organization, it had dropped to 31% of the general population in Africa. Now, they didn't give specifics for men or women, but the general number was 31. That's over a 50% decline between 2003 and 2012. We can assume most of that decline was in the latter years, meaning 2008, 9, and 10, and 11. If we can assume that, then that would also show how, just as that started trailing off, guess what else started trailing off? The high virus infection rate started declining. Think about that. When the HSV growing sores started significantly declining, new infections of hive infections also declined. I've mentioned this a couple of times in a couple of places. Another thing you might want to realize, I don't know if you really care or not, but I'll tell it to you anyway. In Atlanta, Georgia, of the United States of America, 1 in 2 gay men come down with the HIV AIDS infection every year. You won't guess, unless you've already seen some of my documentation, you might have already guessed, almost 1 in 2 of those men also had groin sores. Another smoking gun. 2 smoking guns now. Mark that. 2 smoking guns now. Now, I'm going to come up with number 3 smoking gun. The number 3 smoking gun is the initial infections hitting the United States that were documented. That was 1981. But there was a, guess what? An HSV groin sores epidemic. It started in the mid-1970s. And it wasn't long thereafter AIDS popped up in America. Now that's not really a true smoking gun. It depends on how you look at it. It's not really a true one. But it kind of makes you wonder. Then you look at 1994, the official end of the groin sores epidemic in America. When did significant casualties to groin sores start occurring in the United States of America? When, I mean, not causes to groin sores, but casualties to AIDS. In 1988, it started hitting about the 30,000 mark, and by 1990, it was hitting at 40,000 mark. It was killing so many men that had HSV. Within just a few years, the HSV epidemic was gone. Declared over with. That's 4 smoking guns. 2 really good smoking guns. 1 looks like it's a smoking gun. Another looks like it's a smoking gun. So that's 4 of them. That's 4 smoking guns. Well, basically, it looks like HSV also is on a decline in the United States. There was I think it's the same Washington University, but I think it was a different study. They made a YouTube video of it, and I think it was 2014. They were talking, well, there seems to be a significant decline in HSV2 causing groin sores, and a huge uptick in HSV1 causing groin sores. Now, for you that don't know what HSV1 is, it is your mouth kissing disease. That's where you get cold sores in your mouth and stuff. Well, it can spread to the groin through oral sex. And I don't remember what they said the number of HSV2 cases had been previously, but in that study, what they were doing there, it came back that 70% of the groin sores by 2014 were now caused by HSV1, not HSV2. Now that tells me 5th possible smoking gun. That's 5 of them rascals. 5. And they said that seemed to be the case in more than one U.S. city. In major metropolitan areas, it seems to be a decline in HSV2 and an increase in HSV1. Now you wonder, why do women catch HIV? It's supposed to be a gay disease, right? What if, again, HSV2, who does it affect the most in the United States of America? Sex workers. Who does it affect the most worldwide? Sex workers. Who in the United States is coming down with HIV? Sex workers. As far as the women go. It's mostly sex workers or women in marriages that weren't so faithful, and it was too late by the time they realized it wasn't faithful. So that's basically it. I mean, that's like 6 smoking guns. There's been a lot of research into trying to determine whether HSV allows AIDS to enter the body. And I say, sure it does. A lot of them were trying to say, well, maybe HSV is the cause of the infection. I don't agree that it's the only cause. I think there's other causes. I think hemorrhoids can cause it because it does the same thing any HSV sore does, and that's bleed, leaving access to the bloodstream. It still be things like that matter. Remember and stuff like that. Just detecting, well, hey, is there something similar where the body could have contracted disease as well? Why was it so widely spread among homosexuals initially? Well, it could be hemorrhoids. They bleed if you have sex. Why did so many athletes apparently come down with it? Athletes are known to do heavy weightlifting, which can cause hemorrhoids. I don't know. That's a different ideal, but again, it's still based on the aspect of a sore bleeding causing transmission, which means AIDS may require the same transmission method as hepatitis C, which means some sort of blood contact. There has to be some sort of open wound somewhere for the semen or blood to go into, for the virus to contract through. Now, they've been trying to prove it's a receptacle here or a receptacle there. They've been throwing medicines at it. They've been trying to figure out all kinds of ways it could have penetrated the skin. How many smoking guns do we have to have? Most of the AIDS cases are being transmitted by growing sores and hemorrhoids. Nobody bothered to test hemorrhoids. I don't know why, but it's never been tested. They thought, well, it's a sexually transmitted disease, it's a homosexually transmitted disease, that's the only people coming down with it, they must be cursed by God. Might have been cursed by God, but I hate to tell you, they ain't the only ones who can come down with it. Women can too, through growing sores. And if you don't believe me, ask the Swazilanders. Look at their numbers. Almost twice as many women have the disease than men. What? What did I say? Twice as many women at the height of the infection rate in Swaziland in 2013 and 2014, twice as many women had AIDS as men in Swaziland. It ain't a gay disease, man. This thing is a blood-oriented disease that goes through open wounds, i.e. sores, hemorrhoids that are bleeding, mouth sores that might be bleeding. Even though it's rare, it can happen. Breastfeeding, if the woman bleeds while breathing, a woman starts to get blood in her milk. The baby, if they've got growing sores, can come down with AIDS. During pregnancy or during the birth, actually, if the baby has growing sores, the mother can transmit through her blood. It covers the baby. If you've ever seen a pregnancy, it covers the baby with blood. And if that baby happens to have has HSV, they can catch it just like a man can give it to a woman through those growing sores. Well, this one's kind of long, folks. But what I was just wanting to say to all of you is this. AIDS is not a gay disease. If you want to call it a curse of God, then say it's an anti-adultery disease. But it is not a gay disease. It may have started out that way because most of the gays may have had hemorrhoids. There was no testing done to determine how they caught it. They were just saying they were gay. They must have got it through gay sex. They didn't bother to go in there and try to figure out how it was transmitted. They said blood contact can cause it to transmit, and there's a little note on CDC that says that. But they say, well, there's no way you can tell how it's transmitted. I'm telling you, you can tell if somebody has AIDS by 98 to 99% probability they either, one, ruled out, meaning they don't have AIDS at all, or two, you've identified the person as having AIDS. In Swaziland, it's 97% accurate. A little bit lower, but that's probably because they have other ways of with so many women having it. Kids probably caught it during birth, so the higher numbers doesn't really faze me that much. But in the United States, it's 99.94% accurate, if I remember my numbers correctly. Now that 99.94% leaves no. Yeah. Anyway, it leaves just 0.06% that can't be detected. 0.54% have HIV and going force. If they have HIV, they're living with going force. The remaining 99% or so is people that aren't infected at all. They don't have HIV. So I can rule out almost, even in the worst affected countries, I can rule out something like about 75% of the population by simple fact they neither they do not have the high virus, and I can rule out a good chunk of the remaining 10 or so percent of the population by doing that going sword check. That's another 89% of the remaining 10% that can be eliminated. Then you say, well, what if I've got into this situation? What if you're a woman and you've been raped, or you come into some situation where you've had sex with somebody that has these growing sores? What are you going to do about it? There is a treatment available. It's called PEP treatment. It's similar to PrEP treatment, but it's not the same thing. There's more than one PEP treatment. PrEP treatment only has one type of medicine that can be used for. But PEP treatment, if I remember, has two that were determined effective. You have to take them within 48 hours as far as starting to take them, to have a really good chance of a cure if you were indeed infected that night or the day before. What it allows you to do is it's a 4-week treatment plan. It's been estimated by Potluck Pig, meaning on rape victims and stuff like that, they tested it on. It came up to 80 to 90% effective. No idea whether the woman that was given the medicine had the AIDS virus before they walked in the door or not. Even not being able to know that, they still came up with an 80 to 90% success rate in treatment. My AIDS exposure test gives you an idea as to whether or not you might have been exposed. If you think you've been exposed, then you need to go to your emergency room or your doctor within 48 hours and get you some PEP treatment. It's the only way to ensure you don't catch the disease. The only other way is to avoid having sex with the person who's got those going through. What else can I say? I mean, I would advise if you have any annual bleeding, meaning bleeding out the ass after sex, you go to get PEP treatment. that probably means you've got some sort of hemorrhoid that busted. And if it busted, it bled. That's just like the growing sores. It's a smoking gun. That's pretty much it as far as PEP treatment goes. I mean, there's not much I can say about PEP treatment. It was authorized back in 2012 for use. It's been available since 2012. There was no test to give you a good chance of using it to cure yourself of the AIDS virus if you caught it within the previous 48 hours. CDC actually says 72 hours, but I don't agree with that estimate, even though you can technically be cured of the disease if you start taking it within 72 hours. After 48 hours, there's a huge ramp up of failures. So I don't like a huge ramp up of failures. Before 48 hours, it's something like 99% effective. That's good enough for me. If you want to risk it and risk 68 hours with possibly a 40% chance you won't catch it, that's up to you. But 48 hours is almost 100%. So I recommend 48 hours from the literature that I've read on PEP treatment. Well, this video is getting kind of long. If you want to check some of my statistics, look on my channel. Just tap my picture on next to the what do you call it? The title of this video, and you can run back through my previous videos and go into. There's a little big triangle right right above the save button. Tap that little triangle and then scroll down, and you'll see that there's some information under most of my videos. That information includes equations that I use, metrics that I use, sources that I use. Some of them are better sourced than others. I'm a little lazy. After making about 20 of these things, I don't necessarily put everything in there. Some of the information I don't have anymore to put in there. I've had a couple of hard drives. I had a hard drive crash on me. I had a SIM card crash on me. I had 2 phones crash on me. So I lost some of my information from some of the older sites, like in the 1970s and stuff. So you'll just have to piece that together, or have somebody piece it together for you, because I don't have that kind of access anymore. Well, it's 23 minutes along. And I told you about as much as I know how to tell you. Just remember, AIDS exposure test, 98 to 99% effective. If the person has growing sores, don't have sex with them. If you do, and you didn't have AIDS previously, then go to your doctor and get PEP treatment. I mean, if you can. I mean, it's the only way to save your life. A lot of people say, well, is it a cure? Tamiflu is a prescription medication used for the flu. It reduces the intensity of the flu and eventually causes it to go away. Well, PEP treatment is similar to Tamiflu. It has a particular treatment period, and it keeps the virus it controls the virus and then destroys the virus before it has a chance to actually lock into the body. It's kind of a mixture between what a Tamiflu does to the flu and what a vaccine does to the flu. Some might say that PrEP treatment is actually a vaccine that's in solid form. Most vaccines are given in either nasal form or in liquid form. PrEP treatment may not officially be a vaccine because they say you have to continually take it. You have to keep the drug in your system so that any virus that gets in your system is killed by it. Now, the PEP treatment, if you take it fast enough and get it in your system before the virus gets a hold of your system, it'll kill it out before it gets a hold of your system. That's the best way I can explain what they're talking about. Me not being a physician, not being a doctor, there's not that much I can say about it. Most of the experience I have is in food service, nutrition, and I was in an NBC school in the Army Reserve of the United States, and I was in an NBC recon team for my battalion when I was in the 1st Cavalry Division. So I do know some about biological weapons and stuff like that. It's just not very extensive. They didn't teach us a lot. They just told us how to detect stuff. So knowing how to detect that, I was able to come up with this test using that methodology. Well, that's my only reference of myself that makes any real sense as to my qualifications to make this statement, that PEP treatment can indeed cure the AIDS virus if taken within 48 hours of exposure. If you wait beyond that, forget it. It's too late. I'm going to leave it at that. Thomas Willis out here. You have a good day.